Planes take off and land safely thousands of times every day. But at times, the ride can be rough.
When I hit my head on the roof or the ceiling, and then I fell down and I hit it on the monitor in front of me.
Boeing and others are working on technology to warn pilots there's turbulence ahead, a type that strikes without warning.
And really just give you a warning of exactly when it'll hit.
Some sort of a lighted drone just flew right over it.
Planes have to deal with this potential danger. Drones. What's being done to spot them before they collide with a jetliner? As airports get busier and busier, it's getting riskier for the planes on the ground. You'll learn about the effort to prevent disaster on the runways.
Caution, on taxiway, on taxiway.
And it's not just about safer skies, but clearer, cleaner skies.
We've had several firsts on this airplane, but this is a really big one for aviation.
You're watching a King 5 special presentation, SKYTECH, Aviation Innovation. Now, here's your host, Glenn Farley.
I'm at SeaTac Airport, and every day more than 1,100 flights take off and land here. It's the 9th busiest airport in the country, and until recently, it was the fastest growing airport in the country, and it's still up there. This airport has major projects underway right now to construct more gates, a new international arrivals terminal, and baggage system. But the bottom line is this. Worldwide, we are trying to fit in more airplanes, more passengers into an existing network of airports. And these numbers should put that into perspective. Boeing estimates that today there are 23,000 airliners flying around the globe. In less than 20 years, that number will double to 46,000. But here's the thing, as safe as flying is now, Boeing says we have to redouble our efforts just to maintain the same level of incidents and accidents we have today, much less drive them even lower. And it all starts here at the airport. Whether it's SeaTac or any busy airport, there's always potential for collision. Ramps are busy places, with planes moving in and out, service vehicles moving around, and people trying to work, all in close quarters. Sometimes they make contact. It's happening around the world, and here's the problem. Airports are only expected to get busier, resulting in more canceled flights, expensive repairs, and risk to passengers. These kinds of incidents are called ramp rash, and since we began this project in early April, there have been several more around the country. Baltimore on May 7th, a Southwest 737 and a pickup truck on the ramp are involved in a collision. On May 23rd, an Aer Lingus A330 from Ireland ends up clipping the side of the terminal in San Francisco. The day before at LAX, 2 jets go wingtip to wingtip on the Delta ramp. Some airports, including SeaTac, have been working on different ways to prevent these kinds of incidents.
No 7132 Heavy, Seattle ramp push tail south.
When SeaTac opened its new air traffic control tower back in 2006, it took the old tower and did something new for this airport. The old tower now has ramp controllers, people who are just managing the ramp, trying to keep planes clear from everything else.
Compass 5794, just hold as close as you feel comfortable to the 73 in front of you, taxi forward as they do. I think around 2016, 2015, it has picked up dramatically. And now, each year gets busier. And so now this is the busiest year. And now we have even more international heavy aircraft coming in.
So can technology help out, especially at those airports where there aren't enough eyes to keep a lookout? That's where Boeing's Eco Demonstrator comes in. We're traveling to the remote northeast corner of Montana to witness the first airport tests of one of these evolving technologies.
So we're going to be taxiing an airplane near obstacles which may be out of the pilot's point of view.
Our destination is near the town of Glasgow, and this pre-flight meeting is packed with Boeing test personnel from Puget Sound.
Absolute taxi speed limit today, 30 knots.
Boeing's Wesley Hebert is test director. Pilots Mike Carricker and Kerry Smith will handle the plane.
Yeah, we can do that.
There are young engineers here, including Amelia Wilson and Michelle Warren. Doug Christensen oversees the eco-demonstrator program. And outside, it's beginning to snow.
If things start getting bad, we'll talk about it. It is a taxi test. We've talked about that, and we're going to be okay there.
A key point of this test is the lack of visibility on ramps and on taxiways at airports in bad weather and at night. Our airplane, a Boeing 777 freighter leased back from FedEx.
So we also have orange cones that I put on the opposite side.
Our obstacle, this inflatable pylon on the back of a Boeing fire truck. The question, can a new radar mounted on the tip of the left wing sense the pylon, which has a sheet of aluminum taped to it? And can cameras corroborate the location of the pylon?
We think that we have to provide flight crews with indications of impending impact.
Carricker has spent nearly 30 years as a Boeing test pilot. He flew fighters with the Navy. So did Smith, one of Boeing's newest test pilots.
And from the front seat here, you can't see the wingtip, either right or left.
We'll go 10 feet ahead of the wing, and that's where we'll want the pylon to be when it's on a collision point.
This is the creation of SOCAS, the Surface Operations Collision Avoidance System. Even if the pylon is hit, the wing will clear the back of the fire truck with plenty of room. Despite the snow, there's still plenty of visibility. The pilots know when they have to stop because of the placement of orange cones. The measuring wheel calculates distances.
We are clear of the obstacle.
All right, we're moving.
Amelia Wilson is managing what's happening at the collision point.
We're trying to simulate situations at an airport where one aircraft might get really close to another one. So if you think of the backup system on your car, it beeps at you when you get too close to something. We're trying to do the same thing, but for airplanes.
The Boeing 777 is a huge aircraft. Its wingspan more than 212 feet from tip to tip.
15 knots, yes.
15.
The tests are run at different speeds. The fire truck is placed at different angles. The warning of a collision is when the radar picks up a beep or beeps in the cockpit. The brakes are applied and another measurement is taken, gauging how much warning the pilots received. Michelle Warren working with the radar.
We can see all types of radar cross sections reflecting back to our radar, from the snow, from the pavement, and what we do is filter out the highest ones that will be reflected off of the pylon and the fire truck. This is research. This is our first time trying something on this big of a platform, so it's an exciting thing.
Stop. Spot on.
Stepped on the cones.
We didn't know which beep was the stop on. All you need is a few seconds to bring the airplane to a stop. Right. Okay, that you can tell the crew just stop and then sort it out. You know, maybe there is a conflict, maybe there isn't, but just stop, sort it out, and then go on your merry way.
Okay, so there's no nuisance beeps following. That's good.
Some tests follow the truck as it's moving.
I think I'm 200 feet.
Not unlike one plane taxiing ahead of the other and then pulling off, in this case without leaving enough room. In this test, no beeps. Next test. There is promise here, but it will take years before this system becomes a finished product. Will it simply be an audible warning like a beep, or a beep combined with an image on a dashboard display? Mike Carricker has some ideas.
We would have some kind of a airport map on a bigger display with a very large scale, maybe only a quarter of a mile from here to there, and we'd watch these targets. And if that target looked like it was an impending target to the airplane at its current velocity and current rate, we'd turn it yellow. And then when it really became a collision and you could no longer, you had to take some drastic action, we'd turn it red.
Multiple tests are run to detect the airport itself. The fire truck and the pylon now simulating a light pole, even airport buildings. There will be more testing as development proceeds, but a critical piece of this is reliability, involving some math.
The algorithms know where the edge of the airplane is, so that if there's an obstacle, say over here, that is not in the way, it won't give you a false alarm, which is exactly what we don't want, because when you're a pilot, there's a lot of things going on, and the last thing you want is nuisance tones telling you that you're going to hit something when actually you're not.
We're prepared, right? We bring equipment, we've got staff, we've got people
that can test in any kind of weather.
Doug Christensen heads the eco-demonstrator program.
We don't know if it'll end up being a radar-based technology or a camera-based. And so having an eco-demonstrator here, we can actually put both on the airplane and validate and understand how both of them work in snowy weather and in clear weather.
Boeing can do this kind of testing without interference because it owns this airport. But what is this place, and what was it? This was a SAC base standing for the Strategic Air Command. They used to park big B-52 bombers in these hangars. And then as the global political situation changed, the government simply left.
So in 1979, the county took over this property, Valley County.
Darcelle Wassine used to manage this place for the county. She now runs it for Boeing, which bought it in 1992.
We maintain the facilities that we need to support flight test and doing testing on this site.
It's now called MARCO, the Montana Aviation Research Company, a Boeing subsidiary, but it's also available to others.
We've had Bombardier, Embraer also test at the site.
There is history into what was once known as the Glasgow Air Force Base.
It was a supersonic 101B Voodoo that was stationed here.
She keeps this newspaper article written shortly after it opened.
I do have some pictures of the B-52s too that we had here.
This is 59.
1959, yeah.
In many ways, it's a place frozen in time. The old prices in the mess are still posted. Breakfast for 50 cents, others just $1. The mess still serves meals to flight test crews. Surplus buildings remain boarded up. There's some peeling paint. The fence has endured many Montana winters. It remains what it was. The control tower clock stopped at 0300 hours. Dial telephones haven't carried a voice in decades. But the tower doesn't have much to control anyway. All this loneliness has its advantages.
Because we're remote, it's a great airspace. They can get a lot done. Like today, they can use the whole airfield and not have anybody else bother them.
It only takes 8 people to run it.
So we take care of 3,500 acres.
More fly in like we did for testing.
You don't have to share it with anybody.
Boeing has even used this place for noise testing because it is so remote, so quiet. Here, some 35 miles south of the Canadian border, some 100 miles west of the North Dakota state line. A place that once defended the nation, now helping develop tomorrow's technologies.
United 1, Air Canada flew directly over us.
A near disaster in the dark. Coming up, how pilots can get a clear, bright picture at night and in bad weather.
It was absolutely incredible that we saw it go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the people started feeling the bouncing.
When seconds count. Later, the technology which warns you to brace yourself before clear air turbulence jolts your flight. Also later, I'll tell you what's being developed to spot a small drone before it can damage and endanger lives when SKYTECH aviation innovation continues. If you have a newer vehicle, a car or a truck, chances are it has a built-in navigation system and probably tells you a lot of other things, even connecting to your phone. Now imagine a system like this, far more powerful, something a pilot would need in an airliner. This is security camera video from San Francisco International Airport from last July. You're watching a near disaster narrowly avoided. Look in the upper left-hand corner. Those are the landing lights from Air Canada Flight 759 about to land on a taxiway filled with other planes.
Where's this guy going? He's on the taxiway.
Air Canada go-around. In the go-around, I count 759.
Radio traffic captured by liveatc.net.
United 1, Air Canada flew directly over us. Yeah, I saw that guy.
Whether it's night, fog, or rain, visibility is important. But what if a pilot could look out and see a clear, bright, sunny day at all times, or receive a warning that he was about to land on a taxiway? Honeywell Aerospace has major operations in Redmond, Washington, and here in Phoenix, Arizona. This is where the flight operations are now based, and we're going to go for a ride.
Yeah, we're looking for 2 approaches today, and we'd like to start off with the RNAV Zulu runway 29 right.
We're aboard Honeywell's Falcon 9 business jet, used to develop new technologies. Our pilots, Brian Weaver and Mark Giddings.
The whole goal for this is really to make it like flying on a clear day.
This is a typical display you'll find on any modern airliner. Blue for sky, brown for the ground. This is synthetic vision. Even at altitude, we can see the ground, a lake on the left and plenty of Arizona desert, even some mountains way out there. Honeywell calls this Smart View.
Trying to give the pilot what he wants, when he wants, and how he wants it.
No matter how dark or how low the visibility gets, the display looks like this. But it's a lot more than a sunny picture. Pilots have a tremendous amount of information displayed right on top of it.
The green circle that you see with the wings coming out of it is really where the airplane is tracking across the ground.
But it's not just the computerized picture. It can be combined with an infrared camera.
You can actually see the IR cloud display that's out there.
It's located under that bump in the plane's nose. Adam Gavrich is a flight test engineer.
It's based on, infrared from heat signatures. So up at altitude, you're going to be able to see through clouds. You're going to be able to see, other aircraft that might be passing by.
5 miles for 29 low pressure.
It's a short hop over to the Tucson airport and a landing approach.
The goal is the image I see heads down. It's very similar to the image I see heads up.
Fixed cameras mounted in the cockpit also record what's going on.
So now that we have the infrared camera on, you can see not only the runways, you can see the taxi layouts. You'll be able to see that 737 taxiing out.
300.
Now you can see the runway stripes, the runway identifier, the center line, everything is visible on the infrared.
50.
83, runway 29 right.
40.
So there's my first landing distance alert. There's the runway too short. We'll go around out of that.
But really where the value from this infrared and combined images is when you're landing. So you're on final, imagine the weather is poor, you're going into a mountainous airport, so there's terrain about, but there also could be even animals running across the runways.
These pictures show the very first installation in an airliner, Norway's Widerøe, flying in a Scandinavian country with plenty of mountains and bad weather.
200.
Back over in Tucson, we take another approach to the Tucson airport.
What Brian's going to do is we're going to float down about 50 feet, and then we're going to fly down the runway like we're screwing it up. And you'll watch the green line start to track there, and then you'll watch all the visual indications that we get about what you should be doing with the airplane to kind of simulate, hey, if we had a tailwind that we didn't recognize, or it was a shorter runway, or we floated the landing, or we had way too much energy. All of those things are the program itself is calculating and trying to help us for that.
Gear up, flaps 1.
Normally I have to look 5 or 6 different places to correlate all that information. Here I can just see it really, really quickly.
Right now, there is something between me and you. You can't see it, yet here it is. It's a piece of glass. Well, barriers exist in the sky too. They may not be glass, but they are clear and they cannot be seen. Now, can a technology be designed to detect it? It can feel like the perfect day up above the clouds, but it's what you can't see that's the leading cause of injuries in flight. When airliners around the world encounter serious turbulence, in some cases violent enough to send passengers and drink carts into the ceiling. You've heard the stories.
Flew up and I hit my head on the roof of the ceiling, and then I fell down and I hit it on the monitor in front of me.
Turbulence can be both expected and unexpected, and the clear air turbulence is the unexpected part. You really can't see it because it's not associated with any sort of weather. That's why airlines ask you to remain buckled in your seat when you're not up and around the cabin. This is Boeing's newest eco-demonstrator, a 777 freighter turned test bed for new technology. Much of this tech focused on making flying safer.
I'll show you the laser now in the back.
JAXA, Japan's space agency, has developed a technology on board our airplane to detect what has been the undetectable, designed to deliver a warning up to a minute in advance of impending clear air turbulence.
This would be integrated into a forward display, so you have your normal parameters and just a little indicator warning the pilots when they're coming up on turbulence.
Ian Mahler is the test director and holds what could eventually be installed into cockpit displays.
There'll actually be a little pop-up over here that has a countdown that says severe turbulence, moderate turbulence, or wind shear in 59, 58, and it'll count down in seconds and really just give you a warning of exactly when it'll hit.
On the left side of the plane is a fairing, also called a blister, with a tiny window. And into that window is the laser. You can't see the beam because it's infrared, but it's there.
This is the laser. It's a liquid-cooled laser, and it's firing outside into a mirror that's outside the airplane, turning the beam forward.
The beam is focused miles ahead of the airplane. It's detecting tiny particles in the air like dust called aerosols. But when those particles seem to slow down or speed up or move up and down, that's the warning. It's not just a laser, but a LiDAR laser.
Here we have the two sensors.
The same type of technology fired down out of the bottom of special airplanes thousands of times a second to create detailed photographic-like images of the Earth. This technology used to find earthquake faults on land and can also be used to find what are essentially faults in the air, inconsistencies in the way the air moves, turbulence.
We wanted to find something where the turbulence was very predictable.
For test pilot Mike Carricker, that was in March over Kansas.
So over Kansas, over Garden City, Kansas, we found an altitude from about 24 to 27,000 feet where the wind was just terrible, or just shaking everywhere, but it was smooth below and smooth above, so we could get down below it and then climb up and see that it was ahead of us and then see that it's going to quit as we went out the other side.
And during our testing, we validated, and it was absolutely incredible that we saw it go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the people started feeling the bouncing. So the technology works.
That's the technological end goal, because yeah, we'd like to have enough time to put the carts away.
Now the job is to make the system smaller while making it look farther out, where it's hoped it will become a routine safety tool in the cockpit. It seems like everything in aviation these days is about cutting the use of fuel, petroleum. That's what the 787 was all about, to dramatically save airlines money and also to cut carbon emissions. Well, what if you could fly a giant airliner without using petroleum at all? Let's go for an historic flight. This is the world's largest and most powerful jet engine, the General Electric 90-115B. It's the width of a 737. You could fit 6 seats in an aisle inside of it. There are 2 on this Boeing 777 freighter, and each creates 115,000 pounds of thrust. And with Boeing test pilot Carrie Smith, we're going to go fly across the country without using a drop of petroleum. And this is what's going to get us there: biofuel, a blend of residual animal fats and plant oils, refined into a molecule that matches Type A jet fuel.
Boeing 069 Heavy and Boeing Tower, runway 32 left, full length, clear for takeoff.
V1. Okay. Here's what's interesting. It actually has more energy in it per gallon than regular jet fuel, about 3 to 4% more energy, meaning this plane can fly that much further on a load of fuel. So the question is, does it fly any different?
Nope, not at all. Just like any other Jet A airplane.
So how did we go from generations of kerosene jet fuel to biofuel? Flashback 9 years ago to this Boeing lab in Seattle. Any liquid going onto an airplane had to be tested here, working on converting algae, plants, and other biological mass, even garbage to wood waste. Aviation biofuel was just getting started, and this is where we first interviewed Jeannie Yu, helping lead Boeing's environmental strategy.
We are also looking at halophytes, which is a salt marsh plant. We've also looked at babasu nut and coconut oil.
And the fact that you haven't even heard of some of these should be a good thing, as biofuels can be sourced around the world locally without competing against food. Or former food, like this industrial chicken frying oil.
This is the first 100% biofuel flight on a commercial aircraft.
Yu is on our historic flight, now Director of Technology Integration in the Eco Demonstrator.
So what we did was 2 things. We are validating that as a use for 100% biofuel, but we're also looking at the certification process for those fuels. It's about 12-step process today. We're trying to reduce that process to 5, which opens the door and the gateway to more entrance into the biofuel application.
And the price is dropping. Boeing says this load is about $5 a gallon. A few years ago, it was $8 and higher. And since fuel is one of an airline's biggest expenses, it's hoped biofuels can help insulate carriers from wild price swings associated with petroleum.
Biofuels will provide the airlines a great hedging strategy.
Already, biofuel blends are becoming a regular part of aviation, available at a number of airports with more coming. So you may find yourself on a biofuel-powered flight and not even know. It's tempting to think of air safety like a checklist. Having a technology to avoid flying in the mountains, check. Clear air turbulence, working on that one. But it's not a static environment. Things can pop up. In this case, quite literally.
Traffic 12 o'clock and 7 miles opposite direction, descending down to 10,000, heavy 7.
Climbing out of Boeing Field aboard the 777 Eco demonstrator, we hear this.
Level off. Level off.
That is the sound of TCAS, the traffic collision avoidance system that's been in cockpits for decades. Our plane's TCAS computer has calculated that another aircraft has changed its path in a way it could conflict with us. It can also communicate directly with the TCAS on another jet to avoid a collision.
Clear of conflict.
This was not a close call, but whether it's a TCAS alert or a radio advisory from an air traffic controller in Seattle's increasingly crowded skies, it's not unexpected. The nation's airspace can function safely and smoothly because of a system where most aircraft identify themselves. You can see them moving on these screens inside SKYTECH's control tower. We can see jets from United, Southwest, Delta, and Alaska, including their destinations, even small planes heading to Boeing Field. This FedEx 777 freighter is a big flying laboratory. We've seen how it was used to prevent collisions on the ground at airports, now being used to prevent them in the air. Airspace is becoming more crowded, and not everything in that airspace is identifying itself. And these days, this is what has everyone's attention. A drone isn't communicating with anybody other than its operator. Conflicts shouldn't happen because small drones are not supposed to fly over 400 feet and within 5 miles of an airport. But there are examples of when they do, illegally.
Some sort of a lighted drone just flew right over it.
The FAA is studying what could happen when a drone strikes a fast-moving airliner, even comparing damage a drone would do relative to a similar-sized bird. The drone did more. But it's not just drones.
Hang gliders.
Boeing test pilot Mike Carricker.
What happens if you don't, that other thing in this space is not a cooperative target, has no broadcast. So we have to be able to see it. And maybe we can try to have a camera to help out.
Aboard our Boeing Eco demonstrator is this camera behind the windscreen. It's part of a fledgling technology called Detect and Advise. In this case, it's so new we don't actually see anything from it. The image data is sent back and stored in a computer box in the test racks, which will then be forwarded to Boeing researchers in Australia who are trying to develop the system. So what kind of warning could a pilot receive? If the camera picks up a drone or any unidentified flying object, an indicator might display on a cockpit screen showing its location, likely accompanied by some sort of audio alert.
To help the pilots see the target and give some enunciation that now that we detect a visual object in your flight path and maybe help you find it by yourself or advise on an action.
We have outfitted her with technologies that you'll get.
The Eco demonstrator is a lower cost way to give experiments like Detect and Advise a chance to become real products. So how do you turn a huge FedEx package freighter into a flying laboratory? So this airplane was delivered in October of last year and went into service for the Christmas rush, but once the rush was over, then Boeing leased it back and began installing the equipment to experiment with these 35 technologies. Those technologies have ranged from our historic 100% biofuel flight to even small experiments. Some will move forward, some may not. Eco Demonstrator Manager Doug Christensen.
The opportunity that the Eco Demonstrator program gives us really has shown its value in accelerating technologies and bringing those technologies to our aircraft.
This 777 freighter is the 5th and largest Eco demonstrator so far, and plans are already underway for another one next year.